Being engaged with your customers and clients is a goal which many organizations have. Even many individuals say, I may be a trainer, a speaker, coach, business owner. I need engagement with my people. And often people say, I do networking, but let's face it, especially at the moment, that's not really on the agenda. International expert, speaker, and engagement strategist, Julie Creffield is with me here today. Hello, Julie, and welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So first of all, can you tell our listeners a bit of your story? How did you become an engagement strategist?
Brilliant. So it's something that I've always done. So my early career, I worked as a drama practitioner. So I used to work with young offenders and people on the edges of society, and I would use drama to try and engage them back into mainstream life.
Mm-hmm.
I did that for about 7 or 8 years, and then the London 2012 Olympics came to town. So I'm from East London. I live in Stratford, where the games were held. And a lot of the consultants that were trying to build buildings and, put infrastructure into place were coming across lots of local people that were anti the games, and they needed somebody to come in and engage with them and to get them on side, really, and to be able to explore what the opportunities might be like, and to create dialogue between the architects and the master planners and the people whose lives were really going to be affected. So all of a sudden I've become this engagement consultant, going to government meetings and, working on policy for how we get 70,000 games makers from diverse backgrounds. And so it was kind of by accident, but I also think, looking back now, I grew up in a large family, so we were always coming up with ways to keep ourselves occupied and ways to stand out and to keep ourselves busy. So I think part of it is just who I am at my core. It's the thing, I'm always coming up with ideas of how to get people involved. And, I took a bit of a gap. I set up a business that was completely unrelated. I set up a plus size fitness business that I've been running for 10 years. And people would say to me, goodness me, Julie, how did you grow that business so quickly, so organically, without, Facebook ads or anything like that? How did you get so many people, like hundreds of thousands of people, to buy into the idea that you were selling? And it's only on reflection that I was able to say, well, it's the community engagement stuff I've always done. But I didn't see it at the time. And now, I do the community engagement stuff full time with entrepreneurs who want to learn how to build an army of, buyers rather than, tire kickers.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, I think we were on a conference together, was it in Orlando? And suddenly in the elevator, someone says, are you Julie Creffield? I just signed up for your program. I think that happened in Orlando, wasn't it?
It was in Orlando. It was the most random experience, and I'm so glad there were people that witnessed it, because this is this girl from East London, who all of a sudden is being recognised all over the world. It's a little bit crazy.
Yes. So when we were in contact before, and I sent you, so I contacted you via the website, then we were in contact via email. And when I read your emails, julie@toofat2run.co.uk, is that correct? That's your email.
So that's my running business. So
yes.
My running business is called Too Fat to Run, and it's a global online, it's always been online, plus size fitness business that's been in existence for a decade now. So it was ahead of the curve. If you think about the fact that everybody's had to go online now, I was doing it 10 years ago.
Yes. So would you say that part of becoming an engagement strategist and building your tribe is that you have to make, well, let's face it, too fat to run is a very straightforward statement, especially in Britain. I mean, in Germany, we are known for being quite straightforward with what we say. Do you think that part of getting engaged with people is to make very clear and unambiguous statement instead of rather trying to please a common ground of everyone?
Absolutely. So Too Fat to Run does what it says on the tin brand. People come across my branding and they're either in or they're out. There's no middle ground. People go, that's the running club for me, or I'm offended by it. People that are offended by it tend to be slim people, if I'm being honest. And it's because it's niche, and we're loud and proud, and we're just doing our own thing. And I think that business came out of the fact that none of the sports brands, none of the running clubs were engaging plus size people. They were excluding them. And so when I started writing my blog, people were like, finally, somebody's talking about these issues. I feel at home in your running clubs, whereas I don't in the mainstream running world. So I think it's about identifying a need. I think that's what niche is around. It's about finding a need, but also creating ideas that are sticky, where people go, that's going to stick around for a while. It's not going to run out, in a 6-month period. Like, it's got longevity.
When we talk about creating this idea, let's face it, it is not really common that many people say, hey, I grew up in East London. Why not make a global idea where suddenly people consider myself important and recognize me on the other half of the planet? So don't you think that many people struggle to find themselves, I don't want to say worth, but to get into the mindset of saying, I can do that? Many people will say, that's where I'm born. These are my means. The means are limited, and I have to make the best out of it.
It's a really interesting point. And I think when I set up the blog, I didn't have the ambition to make it into a global movement. I did it because there was something that was frustrating me. And I was like, am I the only person that this happens to? And I think as the traction started, I then started to get really angry with how unfair it was. So runners have to buy running shoes. We can't run barefoot. So we would be investing money in Nike or all of the other companies, and yet we weren't represented in any of their marketing. And that feels unfair. So it turned from being a personal blog into a bit of a mission. It became a mission-based company. And I think in the process of trying to monetize it, the Americans love my brand, so it became global quite quickly, because the Americans took hold of it. I've got a big following in Germany. And so, and because I'd gone online before any of the other fitness instructors had, it was a no-brainer. Why would I just work in East London with overweight women when I can work with overweight women across the globe?
So when now people, we might have listeners now, and I'm only going to quote someone else here as well. When you leave the school system in America or in Germany, you're really motivated. You think you can take over the world by tomorrow. And it was John Oliver on Last Week Tonight who said, when you leave the British school system, every piece of hope got beaten out of you. You just try to blend in with the lowest amount of damage given to you. So when people are in the mindset that they think, I rather find my place and try to blend in, how can they move out of this belief where they say, I have to find my place to stand out? Which, of course, I mean, when you have a brand like you have, and you get into conflict with major brands, that will cause backlash. People will have a go at you for saying that, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think what's interesting about me, because I did grow up in quite a working class family, we already had stigma. I was one of 6 kids. My mum was a single parent. There was no insult you could throw my way that I wouldn't come and beat you up about, so it's like we come from quite a rough area. So I would, it doesn't feel that worrying to have people dislike me, because I've experienced that already based on how I grew up or the area that I grew up. And at school, nobody expected me to do well. I was led into qualifications that were dumbed down. I ended up getting a first-class degree with honours, even though my teacher said that I couldn't go for A-levels because I wasn't smart enough. And so I always had this sense, and I still have it now, if you tell me I can't do something, I will prove you wrong. And, I think that is one of the things that creates energy in my businesses. I want to show what's possible, and I want to prove people wrong and do the unthinkable.
So when we see your engagement really picked up on major brands, Sky News, ITV, Huffington Post, many major newsletters put you on there. When people are now listening and think, maybe I should start my own tribe, how could you help these people in getting started? Because many people will not have an idea how to do it.
Sure. I think a lot of people get confused with what the word tribe means, and we can go into the cultural meanings and all of that. But I think in the online world, what people think it is a large following. They think, right, get myself 10,000 followers or 100,000 followers on Instagram, and then I will have made it and I'll be able to monetize. And we know that there are examples of so-called influencers who have huge followings, and they bring out a line of t-shirts and nobody buys them. So it's not about the size of your engagement, it's not the size of your followers, it's the depth of engagement. People want leaders to lead them somewhere. So I think when you are leading a tribe, you have to be a visionary. You have to say, hey guys, this is where we're going. You know, who wants to come with me? And you have to be really clear on what you stand for and what you don't. And sometimes that means you make enemies along the way. And it's when your vision is so clear. And for me, I remember going for this loan at the job centre and, you know, saying I'm on a mission to get 1 million overweight women running. And the guy laughed at me. He was like, you're ludicrous. He was like, that's not a business. I was like, well, you watch me, you know. So I think the idea of building a tribe is less about the metrics, and it's more about kind of connecting with people on a human level. So you're saying, these are the things that are important to us, and we are stronger together than we are trying to do this by ourselves.
Excellent. So just to wrap the interview up, but when people now are listening and saying, that might be something for me, I might have this mission inside me, Julie Creffield's top 3 tips how to get started.
It starts with you. You've really got to look at your backstory, your values, what kind of leader you want to be. So number 1, it starts with you. You've got to get your, number 2, you've got to get your founding members. You know, you can't go from 0 to 1 million. You've just got to get a handful of people to believe in your idea. And then I think number 3, it's about perseverance. And I think knowing that I'm a marathon runner, you know, you know, it's so easy to make that connection, but it takes time. You know, nobody's an overnight success. So you've got to be willing to take the time with it.
Excellent. Of course, I'm going to put your contact data in the show notes of this podcast. So when people like to get in touch with you and think about the idea that you could help them with building their tribe, they have the chance to get in contact with you directly. And at the end of this interview, there's only one thing I have left to say. Julie, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.